Hi everyone, it's Bella, the founder of the Embody Wellness Institute from San Diego. And today I want to continue the conversation that we started last week about how we have become misaligned from this natural way of being in the way that our body was projected to be. Today I was walking around and I see the most normal scene, a human being walking around with a dog on a leash on an asphalt road. But for a second there, I had this vision of how bizarre that experience is. How in reality the dog was never supposed to be on a leash, it was supposed to be in the wilderness. How the human being was supposed to be in its natural habitat as well. There's not supposed to be any asphalt, and how we have tried to really compartmentalize and control everything, right? So, the nature is here in this small little particle that we've left for it, and the animals are only okay when they're domesticated and controlled by us. And we are only okay if we control all of our desires and act in a civilized fashion. And that's taking the life out of this, the plane of existence that we live. We are deviating from what it means to be alive, what it means to live. And that inevitably is creating this misalignment that eventually, results in an anxiety attack or in, some kind of a health issue that reflects an area that you're not expressing in your body, general sense of dissatisfaction, addictions. So imagine, what's the normal day for most of us? We wake up, rush through the morning, get into uncomfortable, tight clothes, get into this place that's completely devoid of natural, fresh air, direct sunlight. There's no physical contact with other human beings, no stimuli really happening on a physical level. And we go through the day sitting in front of a screen. So our mind is stimulated, but our body doesn't follow. And then we come home completely depleted, so there's no energy for the part that is actually the part that we're supposed to be living our life, right? So I know that might sound like, what's wrong with that? And that's how our society works, and we don't question that anymore. But I think many of us started questioning it in a pandemic, and even before that, that's not how we were projected to be. Our body was supposed to be exposed to direct sunlight, to be in direct contact with nature, to touch the ground, to breathe in fresh air, to experience water on our skin, to be in constant interaction with other human beings, animals, stimuli from right and left, to keep our mental and sensorial stimuli, constantly flooding our body with the hormones and the neurons that fire and give us the experience of being alive. And then we were supposed to experience the small things, from the way that we eat, the way that we move, the way that we interact with other human beings, as these all-encompassing experiences. So eating a fruit was supposed to be this act of, feeling what you want, looking around your environment, identifying that bright fruit on a tree, going up after it and smelling it and tasting it, having some danger in getting to it. So not to glamorize that, but to say that's the way our body works, and that when we don't receive that stimuli around it, we get bored, we get depressed, we get anxious because our mind is receiving all these stimuli from the computer. Our mind is constantly stimulated, overstimulated actually, much more than it was supposed to, but our body doesn't follow. So for 8 hours we're sitting there straight, not following what the mind receives, right? So the most bizarre thing that I think is reflective of all of this craziness and this misalignment is the way that we have been drugging our children with drugs for them to be able to sit still at a desk, and saying that ADHD is the problem, whereas in reality the problem is that the setting of telling our kids that are supposed to be moving around, discovering their environment and being stimulated and touching and discovering all these things, telling them that sitting 8 hours in a desk is the normal way, is the civilized way, and telling them that those that are unable to follow, that they're abnormal in some way. That's, if you think about it really and you consider in the way that we were projected to be, that's everything that's wrong with our society. And it's not, the idea is not to abandon the idea of being disciplined and working and being productive, but if we comprehend that our body requires a certain amount of movement, certain amount of stimulation, certain amount of exposure to direct sunlight, walking around barefoot, then what happens is that we give that the space and importance every day, and we see how that translates not only into improved well-being, physical health, but just feeling good about yourself, and that can translate into productivity and creativity and producing much more when you do sit down to produce in front of your computer. Numerous studies show that 8 hours, it's impossible for you to be productive during 8 hours. And you know what, even if it was, who cares how much we produce and how much money we make if we're unhappy and we're constantly struggling with mental and health issues? I think it's time we ask that question of ourselves. And I'm not trying to spur a revolution here, but I think it's, the more I work with people on trying to figure out, what is it that's not working for them, I realize it's not about them. It's about how we have structured our society and our day-to-day, and the way that this relationship we have with work, relationship we have with one another, that we've taken the life out of it. We've taken out the spontaneity, we've taken out this exposure to the adrenaline, the dangers, the risks, the uncertainties. All of it is part of the process of living. When you try to take it out, you have a controlled environment, and if that's what you call quality of life, great, but your body will never follow that, and it will eventually get sick, get mentally unwell, and you will never feel satisfied by following the rules that we have established as a society, but not by following what that inner design is calling you from the depth of your cells. And it's not just some random process, it's a very specific system of checks and balances that operates on a daily basis, every second, and it can take some of that deviation, but when you're constantly living in misalignment, then your body will keep that score. And that's what I'm trying to help people do, is really find where is that equilibrium where they can be more who they were supposed to be. I work with people a lot and see how much they were traumatized as children for being shamed for being who they are, for being shamed and pursuing their meeting their needs and pursuing their desires and singing and dancing and eating in a certain way and saying things too loud or too quiet. Those are all parts of who we are. And when we give ourselves the permission to be more natural, more wild, more aligned with this self, at the body level, at the mind level, and at the soul level, which to me is a continuum, then we experience complete flow and physical well-being, emotional well-being. All of that just happens naturally. You don't have to seek it any longer because it comes from putting the pieces together. It just flows. So it's up to you to consider how much you want to shift away from the social norms and rules and create your own world, and how much you want to maintain that. But the fundamental thing that I want you to remember is it's the realization, it's the awareness that I understand how I was designed to be, and the reason I'm not experiencing this flow is because I'm not fulfilling my basic needs and I'm not following the way that I was supposed to be. So it really is a matter of having that aha moment, and then based on that deciding how to proceed, whether you follow the way that things were designed previously, or you create a different reality for yourself, which is completely possible. I see more and more people doing that, and as we create the new norms and new rules for living our life, more flexibility and more contact with nature, we realize that it's absolutely possible to design our societies around principles that do work for us to be reaching our highest potential, instead of turning us into robots and depriving us from that livelihood that we were supposed to enjoy. Thank you, and see you next week.